I see one of Doug Tabbitt's inevitable dream cars that he never thought of. So the first chapter of ownership of my latest LP640 has not exactly gone to plan. I bought the car in early June 2018 and it's now early April 2019 and I just picked the car up. So it took about 10 months to do this color change because I bought the car as a black manual LP640, the second highest mile one that seems to exist, but I didn't really want to own a black car ever. I don't like cleaning cars or keeping them clean, and so other colors are much more forgiving. But this car was in need of some cosmetic reconditioning and a few mechanical things. And so the previous owner, who I had actually helped buy the car about a year prior to that, had dropped it off to a body shop to have the front resprayed, a couple things repaired, and then holes filled in where there had previously been a wing mounted on the back of the car. And so in doing that and blending panels, he was going to pretty much have everything repainted black other than the doors and the roof. And so I had always wanted a Verde Draco LP640, and this was just really the perfect car to color change, because in addition to being black, which is always the best color to paint over, the interior wasn't really color committed, so I didn't have any stitching to mismatch or anything like that. Just needed to paint the calipers and paint the wheels my favorite color. And the shop that already had the car was called Innovative Auto Collision. And Philip, the owner there, had been very kind and accommodating and letting me come in and check the car out. And so he came very highly recommended, and so I decided to check some references and agreed to let them paint the car. He said it should take him about 6 weeks. In fact, he said most people could probably do the job in 4. I want 6 because I'm going to take my time. I said, that's great. No problem at all. I figured it was going to take twice that, maybe 3 months. No big deal. That's about how long, 3 to 4 months it took for me to do some minor paint work and fix up some things on the gray car when I had bought it as the previous LP640. So I was ready for that, felt like I was signing up for it. His price was very reasonable, and so I said, yes, let's paint it Verde Draco. Well, very little progress seemed to be made, and in fact, when I went to drop off after the C2C Express that we did last year, late September, I took my Audi out from LA to Arizona and dropped it there thinking, surely it can't take much longer. I'll have both of the cars shipped back together. So I show up after Alex Roy and Arnie and I, yes, Alex and I did eventually make up after his April Fool's hoax. We've now got a good friendship, I believe, and I've enjoyed his company on that drive and on the Cop Cannonballs and other times since then. So all is forgiven, but after that arduous drive without air conditioning, I made the 7 or so hour drive out to Arizona to check on the car for really the first time I'd seen it in person since I had been there and agreed to buy the car and done the PPI on it. So I show up and it's barely prepped. I mean, all the paint's scuffed off of it, but nothing is primed, and certainly they hadn't even tested the color. So we actually tested it for the first time there, made sure the mixture was right, sprayed it out on a few things, and the color was correct. So I was very excited to have a Verde Draco LP640. This was a color of the press car that Top Gear had used in their 2006 test of the LP640. Just a goldish green, a really cool color that nobody happened to order in the US. So as far as I can tell, there's only 3 other LP640s in the world that are Verde Draco. An E-Gear car, the Top Gear press car that has since been crashed, a manual one that at this point I think is identical to mine, and then it was a manual Roadster in Australia. And so I thought it was going to be really cool. I was very excited about it, but it just kept dragging on. And I would talk to him, you know, every few days, and he would always say, yeah, we're doing this, doing that. We had a couple of setbacks. They happened to break the windshield when they pulled it out, and I had to order a new bumper for the car, and now Tavares gets the hand-me-down old one to try to fix his fake Premier 4509 bumper. So we'll see how that all goes. But I got everything set up, but it still just kept dragging on. And, you know, he'd say, oh, I'm going to have it done by the end of summer. I'm going to have it done by the end of fall. Definitely by Thanksgiving. I can't let it go past the end of the year. Oh, definitely no way it'll go past the end of January. And I'm kind of like, you know what, let's just stop saying dates, because obviously this guy came highly recommended, but I mean, goodness gracious, it just kept dragging on and on. And the only thing that I can really assume is that they decided that because they knew they were going to be late, they would make it perfect, because I didn't go in there saying, hey, I'm Ed, I have a big YouTube channel, and if you screw up my car, I'll ruin your life on the internet. I just, you know, said, hey, this is my car, I want you to paint it. But my guess is that one of you guys wandered in there one day and told them about me, and he got freaked out. So the owner of the shop, I guess decided, well, I don't mind the world knowing that I'm very, very slow at this, but I want to make sure that the outcome is perfect. And to his credit, it is insanely good paint work. The best paint work from on an aftermarket basis that I've ever seen, certainly better than a factory job. There's no way to tell that the car has been painted. It looks like a 100% factory OEM job. It is wonderful. So I could not be any more pleased with the quality of the paint work from Innovative Automotive. That being said, it took an eternity, and their tectonic work pace was a constant source of frustration, because the problem is that when you outsource something like this, I mean, obviously I'm not going to paint my own car, so I've got to entrust someone to do that. They've got to give me a quote, I've got to approve it, and then I sort of leave it in their hands. And the same with any kind of big project or build. You really can't change horse midstream in that case, because the situation that I was left in towards the end of last year and really for the last several months is, look, I can just grin and bear it and let them take as long as they want, or I can pull the car and pick it up in boxes and pieces, know I'm going to lose parts, and then let someone else who's not going to want to start with a car that they don't fully know that they didn't take apart, try to put it all back together and paint it. And so they're going to charge me more for that and not want to guarantee their work. And so you're kind of at this difficult position. And I finally had to call them and say, look, I know you're probably freaked out that I'm going to go on the internet and say that you're a terrible person. I'm not threatening that. I've never threatened that. But if you never give me my car back, I will do precisely that. And so I guess that eventually lit a fire under him. And so finally the car was done. And I knew that I needed to go out there and obviously check over everything before I could ship it back. But at that point, I'd already long since shipped the Audi back and gotten it home. And so I really just decided, look, I'm going to go out there, and as long as everything looks good, I'm going to drive the thing home. And the guys at Vincero Watches had heard about that, and they were like, look, we want to help out. We know there'll be some other expenses. And so they kind of went above and beyond on their sponsorship for an upcoming month to support us and to make that possible. And I can't thank them enough for the opportunity. In fact, the guys from AP3 flew out a few days beforehand. They clear brawled the whole car, put on some ceramic coating from Avalon King. So our sponsors of the channel really made the experience a whole lot better. But I had no idea how the car was going to go. It had set for about 1.5 years when I helped the previous owner buy it, and he put about 500 miles on in a little over a year. And then the car had set for 10 months. And I had another friend that was in the process, actually Nick, of ant crawling out of his face from a motorcycle accident fame. He had just bought his first exotic car, a 2014 Aston Martin Vanquish in LA. And he was going to pick it up then. So Nick and I flew to LA and picked up that car, went to Arizona, accompanied by Tom Park, who's told a few stories here in his GT3 Touring that he took European delivery of, and then rather having it shipped to his Atlanta base dealer, shipped it to Seattle and decided to go up there. So he decided to drive it around the Pacific Northwest and all that, eventually quit his job because he was having so much fun driving his Porsche. And so it was all kind of 3 different ways of buying your dream car. And so we decided to kind of each have our own little dream car road trip. So I'm going to make a little bit of a longer form video of how all that worked with some input from those guys at some point. But Doug Tabbitt decided he wanted to join in the fun, so he flew into Arizona and decided to ride with me. And so Tom drove out to Arizona and then circled back, and Nick and I drove in the Vanquish and my car, and Doug kind of bounced between the two. And I ended up being thrilled that we had chosen to drive the car back, not just because of my utter disdain for the entire exotic car transport industry, but because driving across the country, I think this was my 10th cross-country drive, always allows you to just experience the U.S. in such a unique way. And you just never know what's going to happen. I mean, where you're going to stop, what cheap hotels you're going to stay at with a Lamborghini or an Aston Martin parked outside, what strange dives and diners and things like that you can stop at for lunch or dinner, and just the experience of seeing the terrain of our country evolve as you move in whatever direction you're going. And so I highly recommend that you do that, because literally you never know what's going to happen. We diverted off to get some coffee. That shop was closed, so we ended up going by a McDonald's, which seemed like a terrible idea as a place to get food, but hey, we decided to try it out. And as I'm walking in, I see one of Doug Tabbitt's inevitable dream cars that he never thought of. So I decided to dispense with a restroom break before I come back out and alert him of what I've found. And I found some late 90s Ford Expedition that had been converted into like a sport track truck style thing by a boat company with like 90s disposable cup graphics on the side. So he has since purchased that car from the McDonald's employee that it belonged to, and it is about to destroy everything else at Radwood after some absolutely serious reconditioning. So I'll let him talk about that later. But it was just one of those things that you never expect to find. It was never going to pop up on Bring a Trailer, but just a great thing to add to the Switch Cars fleet. Man, I'm so happy to have the car home. I'm so excited to have the project kind of nearing completion and get it into daily driver status once again. But I love it. I'm still in love with manual LP640s, and it's gonna be, be a little bit of an ongoing project, but reaching the finish line always feels great. So thank you all for the support, for all the questions of where is the car and when are we going to get an update. But the car is back and it's mostly done, and I couldn't be any happier. I loved the way the Avalon King ceramic coating worked on my Porsche 993, so I was excited to try it out on my LP640. We put a clear bra on the car, but then on top of that, we put the ceramic coating to make it easier to clean. And after a 2,000-mile road trip, all the bugs just sprayed right off. It works great on my car, and you should try it on yours, so there's a link in the description below for a discount.